And the broadcast is live, and we're streaming also on Real Estate Business Podcast channel. Tom Panos, Phil Tarrant, Real Estate Exposed. Tom, this is it. We're at the pointy end. It's nearly match day.
Yeah, I remember.
Come Saturday, 21st of May, Stray goes to the polls. What's going to happen?
Don't know. Too close to call. Only 4 or 5 weeks ago, we were talking about it, Phil, when the election got called, and we were having a chat about it, and it's gone in swings. And listen, if you're going to listen to the polls and you're going to listen to people that are put in a position of authority in the media, they're all saying that as of Saturday, Anthony Albanese and the Labor Party will be running Australia, and the end of an 11, 12-year stint of the Liberal Party is over. But as I said to you off air, Phil, I believe, and I'd love to hear from our people that are tuning in. I'd love to hear from the people tuning in who they think will win the election. Please, in the comments section, who will win the election? Phil, is there a possibility the last 24, 48 hours, the quiet voter who doesn't say much goes off and ticks coalition because deep down they think to themselves, it's better for me financially. I'm going to take advantage of the new policies they've brought in, $50,000 out of my super that allows me to buy real estate. I feel safer to have Scott Morrison on the cash register than Anthony Albanese. I don't know, Phil. It's got a bit of that Donald Trump thing where everyone thought Donald Trump was out. This is the election that he did win. And then he surprised everyone. And the polls were wrong. So I'm looking at the people that are typing in here. Let's have a look at this. So, wow, okay. Liberal. ScoMo. Going to be there. What's that? Morrison. Yep. Forget about that. That won't happen. Look at that. Guys and girls, our own poll. The polls are control. Our own poll.
That's the 11. That's 11 out of 11. Tom, very much unlike your auctioneering on the weekend, mate.
Yeah.
We'll go there. Let's not go there yet. He's not happy, everyone. He's never seen anything like it. But
I get paid, Phil. Don't get me wrong. I get paid for every auction. I was deflated, but because the conversation was the same. It was like vendors and buyers had gone to their own script school. It was like they had their own scripts and dialogues. The buyer would say, "But the market's dropping. I don't have to, pay that price. I'll wait till it drops." And then the vendors would say, "But I don't have to sell. I'm not forced to sell." So you ended up having this gap. It got to the stage, Phil, by the end of the afternoon, I'd go to an owner and say, as you can see, that's what we've got to. And I'd say, I know you don't have to sell, but do you want to sell? Right? So, yeah, but Phil, listen, the votes are still coming through. The votes are still coming through.
What are they saying? Tell us, Tom. Tell us.
Liberal. Probably count here. It's 20. There hasn't been one Labor. So, but listen, we've got a biased group of people here, don't we, Phil? Like, they're people that are tuning in, real estate, finance. We don't
professional Australians, Tom, rather than what would necessarily be the heartland or the heartbeat of the Labor Party. So yeah, look, let's acknowledge that it's a sample audience, and you would assume there'll be a lot of voters, mate. Unlike you and your cohort in the inner suburbs of Sydney, the left or the independents, mate. I know you're out there flag waving, worrying about all those policies. You won't tell me the way you're going to vote, and I'll never tell you the way I'm going to vote. But your question was, Tom, which is a really smart question. In a run up to the election, 48 hours away, well, even less now, will people change their mind? And the answer is yes, they can, and maybe they will. And the simple reason why is that's what happened last time around. That Prime Minister Scott Morrison spoke at length about the quiet Australian. He said, how good is Australia? It's a miracle, but the quiet Australian. And I like to think a lot of real estate agents are the quiet Australians. I like to think well, probably you're not really a quiet Australian. You're the opposite of a quiet Australian. You've probably got one of the biggest social media followings in real estate globally. But someone like me who's the quiet Australian, the vote happens. It happens at a moment in time, and people's attitudes and perceptions can change on election day. So who knows? Who knows? Don't always listen. We say don't always listen or believe what you read in the media today. Get the facts yourself, and we'll know what the facts are come Saturday, mate.
So Phil, this morning I went to a cafe I don't normally go. It just opens up really, really early, called Galleria. 3 guys in there. All 3 guys are Western Suburbs boys. One owns it, 2 they're all mates, and they serve coffee here in Haberfield. I just did my own little market research, Tom Panel style. Hey guys, who are you voting for? I said, Liberal, Morrison, mate. Get my 50 grand and I put it in a property. I think if Liberals were to win, this property policy, Phil, I've underestimated how many people obviously have got housing as a big issue in their life. So these 3 guys, 25 to 30 years of age, brought up in the western suburbs, they've got this cafe one of them owns. They've got one guy, has probably got 10 grand in the bank, right? The others, I'm not quite sure. They see that this is a vehicle for them to get into home ownership, this policy that has come in. And I think there's a possibility that you might get a few people that were Labor voters who swing because of that policy.
Maybe, and they've been very strategic and deliberate about when they've introduced this, right? It's, in the final stages of the election campaign. I think the official launch was in Brizzy on the weekend. Maybe it is, and it's a headline thing, and it's something that would resonate with most people, Tom. A third of Australians rent, and a third of Australians have a mortgage, another third have a place and they don't have any mortgage. So 2/3 of Australia have property to some degree. It's still alive and well, the great Australian dream. I think we're cajoled from an early age to see the benefits of housing as some shelter to live in, but also as an investment point of view. You only need to go back through time in Australia's history to realise the positive impacts of investing in property, whether it's as an occupier or investor. So you're pulling at the heartstrings of most Australians if you can go, hey, here's actually a way in which this dream that you feel as though is out of your reach might just be a little bit closer. And when you start giving people hope, Tom, attitudes change rapidly, and maybe that's the play on this. Look, the practicality of this particular policy, you need to see it play out in real world. The opposition are pretty much going, no, we wouldn't do that, and they're coming up with all the reasons why. Obviously they're, the super funds probably don't like it too much, and a lot of the super funds are industry funds, which are driven by a lot of those more traditional blue collar industries. So they don't want to see their funds depleted by people withdrawing money out to chuck it into property, right? So there's a level of compromise there. But the practical reality of it, 50 grand, take it out of your super, or 40% of your super balance, either whichever one is 50 grand, or if you don't have that much, it's bigger. One of the big things, Tom, is that a lot of people are really underweight in their super, and a lot of people withdrew super out. Probably those people who would benefit from this scheme probably drew some super out during COVID, when you had that option to try and keep the cash flow going. So super balances are already depleting, and I think a lot of people are probably underweight in terms of where they should be in terms of the super balance now, planning for a retirement. They reckon you need 500 grand when you hit 65, right? Yes, there's going to be some rules around this. The money you take out, if you realise the value of that property through some sort of transaction, you need to plug it back in. There's rules around it. A lot of the pundits are saying it's not going to help with affordability, because if anything, it may drive prices up, because you're going to have more tension, positive upwards tension on those price points where people are probably operating as first home buyers. But what it is, and potentially will do, is get people into property sooner. And that's good, Tom. And that's good if it's a market that's going up. But getting people into property sooner in a downwards market means that some people may end up with negative equity, that which is only an issue if you need to sell. We know that. But some people will be forced to sell. So there's pros and cons with everything. But as a headline, I think it's been quite a positive one for the coalition government. Everyone's talking about it. It's on the front page of every paper. It's pretty simple to understand. Don't know, mate. Will it be the thing that changes people at perception now and voting day? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, look, Phil. For me, the other thing here is, I don't know. You get $50,000, you put it into property. 20 years later, you actually sell the property. You put your $50,000 back, or whatever laws that they've got on how much you've got to put back. Quite frankly, I think you probably end up, that $50,000 would probably end up doing better in property than it probably would have in the funds. If you want to talk about growing someone.
A guy from Super Ratings come out just the other day. I was reading it, and he pretty much said, will most superannuation funds or the balanced superannuation funds be in the red this coming period? It's likely. What's a better bet, Tom? The property market, or having your money in some sort of other financial investment instrument that you've given to someone else to say, hey, here's my money, you guys work out how to get the best return I can on it.
Yeah. Well, look, Phil,
they've weaponized superannuation. They've weaponized affordability. And that is that emotive heartstring that pulls at every single Australian. Will I not be able to afford property? Whether or not Australia's got it wrong, mate. Whether or not this obsession that we have around home ownership as the measurement of success in Australia, it's always been that way, and I don't think it's going to change too quickly.
No, it's inbuilt into our psyche. It's brain tattooed into our DNA, and things like that don't change very, very quickly. But Phil, we spoke about it earlier on, maybe a month or 5-6 weeks ago. Regardless of whether Liberal or the coalition, Labor or the coalition win, we do know that we are going through. We're going to face headwinds. There are times in your cycle you've got headwinds behind you. There are times when you've got no headwinds behind you or in front of you. It's obviously, whether it's Labor or Liberal, there are things at play at the moment. The stock market's all over the place. You've got the continuing issues of Russia, Ukraine, but probably the biggest issue, Phil, I think it's a given that rates don't normally go up once and they stop, that there is an ongoing pressure. That's the mechanism that they use. There's a lot of talk that there's a possibility, even though it's going to be living interest rates in living memory at the moment we've got, there is a possibility that in a year or two, we could have double the rates that we have now, right? And that's what a couple of brokers I've been speaking to saying, to have 100% increase is something that hasn't happened for a very long time. But what surprises me, Phil, is on Saturday, as I said to you off air, I'd sold 2 properties prior to auction, but then I went and did 10 auctions on Saturday and I got 0 out of 10. 0 out of 10, right? That hasn't happened since 2008. Then on Sunday, slightly got a little bit better. A lot of people that are on here know they've been watching the results. They know what's going on. We've got a clearance rate that has been dropping, I just feel that the next 3 or 4 months are very interesting times. Now, Phil, have you been following what's been going on with the markets overseas, Wall Street? All there. There's that's turbulent. In the last week, we've had the Bitcoiners have lost all their money.
Well, mate, yeah, I need to look at some listed shares. Atlassian, for example, has been absolutely hammered. Netflix has been hammered. Afterpay's been hammered. You're seeing red all over the place, Tom, and Australia is not alone in the factors which are influencing its economy. All Western economies are facing the same thing. To your point around the war in Europe, now, taking away the human component of that, when you look at supply chain challenges and just the continued exacerbation of supply chain challenges, whether it's fuel, a lot of timber A lot of timber comes out of Russia for Western building, Australia included. Everyone thinks Australia gets its own timber, but we still import a lot of it, right? So these supply chain issues are universal across the Western world largely, and everyone's seeing, significant challenges, inflation. Everyone's still seeing the same changes like Australia with access to resources, and by that I mean human resources. The employment markets are tight. It's just this layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, which is sort of creating this sort of inverted commas perfect storm for economic challenges. Now, the underlying strength of the Australian economy is still there. We saw a point there about one of Australia's largest builders is starting to wobble. From Luke Moroney, Luke, how you going? This is a big builder that's been in business for a lot of time. Has built thousands of houses probably, and their biggest concerns is that everyone's on these contracts that were established before these big supply chain issues took place. Prices have gone through the roof, and builders, if they're stuck on these fixed price contracts, they can't deliver. And these are, exacerbate just other issues, across the whole supply chain. So it's a unique time. It's a very unique time. And I think, the real estate sector needs to be thinking about how they can best support Australians through this period of time. Property investors I know, smart property investors I know, are really looking at this coming period to capitalise on market opportunities. And I've been chatting a lot about that. My view is that because a lot of the challenges that we have now are inherently sort of structural in terms of our ability to get the goods and resources we need in order to conduct an effective economy. Once they get remedied, we should see a return to a more normal market faster. I don't know if it's going to be a really long cycle, this one, Tom. I'd like your view of it, because by and large, things are okay. It's just been nuanced, well, more than nuanced by all these challenges that we have right now. Do you reckon the speed up is going to be the speed down, or can you see a long, drawn out, protracted, soft market where not much is happening and sentiment is not there? And to your point, Tom, a lot of people don't need to sell. They can go, I'll just wait. No worries. It's less risky.
Yeah. I think, Phil, we're halfway there. I think it's a classic case of the data lagging reality. If you ask any agent that's got a good helicopter view, one that sells a lot of real estate so they can actually give you a good sample size report and analysis, they will tell you we're down 10% in most markets. Look, a lot of the people have been saying we're going to drop 20%. So, hey, here's the deal. We're probably halfway on the way there, right? And the problem that I have, like you're talking about, these investors that are looking, and I've fallen into the trap where you try and pick the bottom, right? And a lot of the times what happens is you delay, and then by the time you jump in, because you start seeing signs that it's moved, you actually have sort of missed the opportunity, which I reckon you're probably better buying just before the bottom than just after the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Because
I'd rather buy on the way down rather, buy on the way down. But where and how down is, and it comes to a point, it doesn't really matter that much how far down it goes. It's how far it comes back up, right? Mate, I'm in Perth at the moment, and I spent yesterday looking at some commercial real estate, trying to get a sense for the ground truth out here in Perth, and chatting with some agents. And mate, for the life of you, it's really hard to find good commercial stock right now. It's rare as hen's teeth, and it's hot as. Commercial real estate in Perth is a very, very hot market. The thing's getting snapped up so quickly. Really good yielding assets, Tom. There's a real spring to their step out here in Perth. Real estate agents, both resi and commercial, and it's been pretty lackluster. I remember me and you were out here probably 6 years ago. And I was doing sessions with real estate agents. You were the MC of the event, and mate, they had their heads in their hands, right? Just the market was it was a very, very tough market, exacerbated by a lot of the universal policy decisions by APRA to try and slow down the Sydney and Melbourne market, because it hit even harder out here. It just made it even worse, mate. It's a tale of two cities now. Perth's flying along. Perth is absolutely firing along. It's copping COVID pretty hard right now, though.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about both those points there, COVID. I know a couple of agents in Perth I spoke to today. They're at home, but you're absolutely spot on. The training that I'm delivering in Perth is totally different to the training I'm delivering everywhere else. Everywhere else wants, hey, vendor management, get the prices down, how to create urgency. In Perth, they're talking about the stuff that Sydney and Melbourne wanted during the lockdowns. We need stock. We need stock. We've got a big appetite of buyers. They're buying left, right, and centre. There is a lot of people from the eastern states that are securing property in
That's
Perth
what
as
I
well.
heard. That's what I heard. I heard, there's just one area I looked at, and the agent was saying everyone's an East Coast investor,
Yeah.
chasing yield and capital growth.
One thing is for sure, Phil. At the moment, cash is king. There's no question about it. It's a good spot to be in. And for many people, we talked about it last week, a number of real estate agents have done it. And these aren't agents that I call investors. These are guys that are dealers. They dabble in it. They go in. They've gone in with the view, sell high, buy low, sell now with the view that a buyer is going to get re-rated. And if they get re-rated, they're going to have less to borrow. So maybe that prices are going to soften by 10, 15%. Not a great strategy for a long-term investor, right? Because it just doesn't fit the model of an investor. You buy a property, put it in the top shelf, and you let the deviations work itself and amortize over 20, 30 years. But for a small group of people that might find that, hey, they pick up a 10, 20% margin because they were able to time it. Yeah, as Murdoch says, never waste a crisis. You don't get many of them. But Phil, I know that on Saturday afternoon, when I finish my auctions, I'm going to get on the sofa. I'm going to put a blanket over me. I'm going to end up having my iPad open, have the TV open, and I'm going to be alternating between Sky News and ABC because I want to somehow get the truth somewhere in the middle on what's going on. You know what it's like. They've all got their narrative, but hopefully by 9, 10, 11 o'clock on Saturday night, the numbers won't lie.
Yeah, well, maybe Tommy, if you're up to it, before you get too many wines in here, and myself, maybe if you want to have a date on Saturday night, mate, I'll be doing the same thing. So we could even potentially do a real estate expose on election night if you're up for it.
Mate, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We could
running commentary.
Running commentary. We could do a running commentary, and let's talk about that. Well, Phil, listen, when are you flying back from Perth to Sydney? Tomorrow?
I got the red eye tonight, mate.
Oh no, I already feel your pain. No, and I've got to drive. I've got to drive to Canberra tonight, and I was feeling sorry for myself, and then I've just felt a million times better.
Yeah, mate, it's fool's gold. I've been told it's fool's gold that red eye, because I want to get back keep my meetings on Friday morning from 8 o'clock, and it's soul destroying. I've done it before. I hate it.
Now, Phil, you're going to do me a favour. I'm going to tell you, there's one thing I absolutely love the most about Perth, and that is when I'm heading back to Sydney, going to that Qantas lounge, the one that's upstairs, the better one of the two, and go get yourself the best pizzas in Australia. They are in the Qantas lounge. Have you ever had one?
Is that in the normal Qantas club or the fancy one where the important people go?
The fancier one. There's an Italian oven at the back.
Mate. I looked at them. But Tom, I flew in yesterday, and I had an hour or so before I had to go somewhere. So I went, I'll go up the lounge and just get a bite to eat. I looked at the pizzas and I went, they look pretty good. They were coming out fresh, and I was just feeding all the FIFO workers, right? All the guys in fluoro were just pounding down pizzas, and I went, I shouldn't eat that stuff. So I deliberately said I'm not going to eat it. But on the way back tonight, I might give one a bit of a crack, mate.
Phil, on the way to on the flight from Sydney to Perth, I salivate to the point where I actually get out of the plane, and I don't go off and take an Uber. I do a detour, and I go into the lounge, and I get pizza. And then what I do is I deliberately have no dinners or lunches there, and I head back and I'll eat. And I got to tell you, you can tell the way I'm carrying on. The best pizzas in all of Australia appear to be the Qantas Lounge at Perth, right? They come out. Anyway, what's the point, Phil? That's what you should do this evening before you get on your red eye. And when you come back, you've got what an absolute professional. He wants to be fit and ready for his 8:30. Is it 8:30 meetings?
Yeah, from about 8-ish, 8:30. I sort of meet some of our core team every Friday. It's good. It's a good meeting. So get back for that, and hopefully it doesn't do too much damage, mate. We've got the Better Business Awards for Perth on tonight, so that starts in about 3 hours' time. So I'll pop down there and see what's going on.
Look, a busy man. He's working in 15-minute increments. Everyone, look at that. He's going from one awards, get there, get to the airport, and then get on that midnight flight. And I got to tell you, interesting airport.
Mate, this goes back to the point. It goes back to the point, mate. What is it? Hustle beats talent when talent
don't hustle.
Yeah, mate. I've got to hustle. I ain't got the talent, so I'll hustle, mate.
You're all right. No, you got both. You got both. I was actually, it's funny we're talking about that. I was saying to someone the other day, I said, look, the ultimate formula is that don't get too carried away and believe too much on your own talent, because it does affect how hard you're going to work. And I think it's one of the things that a lot of the experienced agents, attraction agents, the big ones, they do fall into the trap where work falls into their lap. And when it starts not falling into the lap, Phil, because they've moved away from an operating pattern that doesn't go off for new business acquisition, and every business has got it. You've got account management and you've got new business. The minute you just rely on account management is the death of your business, because it's the death of a salesperson is the death of a pipeline. If I ever wrote a book on sales, I would just say the death of a pipeline is the death of an agent. But Phil, let's leave it at that. You get yourself into a black tuxedo. I'll get myself some nice warm clothes for Canberra. Head drive there, find the closest Tesla charger halfway, and we'll see you next week.
Mate.
Maybe on Saturday. Maybe Saturday.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Saturday we do a impromptu show.
Cool. Look forward to it.
Thanks.
See you, mate.
See you,
okay.
everyone.
Bye-bye.